Hello, Kurt Jackson, retirement income strategist with KJ Financial, here with this week's Your Money Matters. I'm going to start talking a little bit about what's kind of been going on in the world, in the market. The market's been crazy lately. And is it that have we finally arrived at that, the forecasted financial calamity that everybody's been talking about? There's serious challenges that are facing Americans and all the people all over the world, for that matter. And for those that have prepared and who have decided to prepare, the opportunities are really endless. And not only will these people not lose money, but they will have an opportunity, opportunities presented to them several times to make enormous returns on the money that they do have. And for those that don't prepare, and that's as much as 90% or more of Americans, there's a very real possibility of losing most of, if not everything. Okay? So, this crisis is going to be much larger than the one we saw in 2007, 2008. Why? Why is that? It's because nothing was really fixed after 2007, 2008. We temporarily fixed burst bubbles by creating even bigger financial bubbles elsewhere, right? I want to give you some things to watch for, and they're not going to be apparent, or even if they are, they're not going to be disclosed in a clear and transparent way by the financial world, the government, and the news media. Now, please remember, as we talk about these things, that math trumps every misrepresentation being made by the government, being made by Wall Street, being made by the banks. All right. Now, look, believe it or not, I'm hoping for a major crisis, and that's not because I want to see anyone, hurt. I really don't. But I don't think this serious crisis is an end of the world type scenario. In fact, I believe this crisis could very well provide us with a foundation for a beneficial turnaround that will take us in a positive manner in the future. See, Americans only seem to respond to crisis. They really only participate when they're in real pain. And this upcoming crisis is going to provide real pain to almost every American. They're going to demand, coming out of it, the hopes would be that they're going to demand a government that enables real education, that teaches skill and equips our children to fill good jobs. The American people will demand a government that enables private sector to provide real jobs, not transitional jobs like McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King. Real jobs, jobs that provide compensation, that can build homes, buy cars, and save for retirement. The next crisis is going to cause Americans to demand that government lives within its means and respects the hard-earned tax dollars of the American people. Until that crisis, however, we will face devastating consequences for the ridiculous actions taken by our government and ourselves. Do you want to be in that group that is not hurt by what is about to happen? Do you want to be in a position to take advantage of what will happen? Or do you want to be like most Americans who will be financially destroyed by the events of the next 3 to 5 years? See, the world has a lot of debt to answer for. The world and our country are going to have to face the consequences of all the financial misrepresentations that have been made. Look, I don't have all the facts. I've not received a call from the president or the secretary of the Treasury or the chair of the Federal Reserve. And to be completely honest, if they don't know what's going to happen, how in the world could I, right? Or how could anyone? And isn't that the point? If the probability of danger is increasing exponentially, okay, ask yourself this question. If no one knows what's going to happen, should you be really aggressive financially, or should you be guarding against catastrophe and learn to become more of a financial counterpuncher, if you will, always putting yourself in a position to take advantage of any bad things that could happen? Let's start and look at the last 2.5 years. Okay, I've had a lot of people that tell me that I've been too cautious, that I'm too conservative, that I'm causing my clients to miss out on quality returns. Well, here's the math, okay? May 1st, 2013, the Dow Jones Industrial Average closed at 15,115 and some change. On September 28th, 2015, the Dow closed at 16,001. So in 2.3 years, the Dow increased 5.86%. The average return for that time was just 2.55%. The Dow has dropped from 18.3 or so in the last 30 to 45 days. How many of you locked in your gains by getting out of the market at that point in time? My guess is almost none of you, right? No one got out, right? Well, I shouldn't say no one. I know some people that did, if you know what I'm talking about. See, And also to think about this, dividends have gone way down. Dividends are now averaging just a little bit over 1%. Look, I've got plenty of products and strategies that I could have sold in that time frame that would have approximated or even beaten that return without the volatility and the risk. Where the math becomes extremely powerful is when we increase the length of time that when we do the measuring. So if we go back to September 1st, 2007, the Dow closed at 13,895. And again, remember on September 28, 2015, it was 16,001. That's an increase of 15.16% for those 8 years. That's an average return of just 1.9%. Even adding in dividends, the return is still barely over 3%, and that's before fees and any potential taxes. See, every product I provide that, even including cash value life insurance, would have equaled or beaten those returns with lower or no taxes after fees. Okay. Here's one more. December 1st, 1999, the month before the supposed Y2K trauma, the Dow closed at 11,497. It closed on, remember, September 28th, 2015 at 16,001. Right? That's a 39.18% increase for those 15.75 years. It's a 2.49% average annual return. So even if I included dividends, I would have provided better gross and net returns to my clients. Right? I could have offered better fixed interest rates and fixed indexed annuities. I could have offered fixed index life insurance, and I would have provided better returns with less volatility and better returns, better results for the most part. And almost all of the money in those things would have been liquid right now to take advantage of any blunders in the stock market, the bond, the real estate, and commodities market that you might have seen opportunities in. And at a time when no one knows what's going to happen, isn't that a better strategy for most of you? Okay. All right. So what we do, the way we do it, typically provides better results over time with reduced risk and much better tax treatment most of the time. Now, here's why you need to know this information. We're about to have some of the most serious worldwide economic catastrophe in history. Now, while this is ramping up, we continue to hear from the government, Wall Street, the financial media, that we're in a recovery. Look, nothing could be further from the truth. Please think about some of these things. First of all, let me ask you this. After almost $14 trillion in stimulus to our economy, does it sound like our government or our economy is in good shape if the Federal Reserve is afraid to raise interest rates even 0.25%? Also, watch for credit defaults. We're going to see these defaults all over the world. Enormous amounts of money have been borrowed by people, companies, and governments that didn't deserve credit. What will happen when those debts go bad? Won't financial institutions that have invested in that bad debt be jeopardized? Even worse, most of this debt has been leveraged. Okay? There's never been this much debt in the history of the planet. Most of the student loan debt that's being incurred is from students taking online courses. 80% of the largest debt-funded colleges in our country are online colleges. Okay? The default tsunami is starting, and these debts will never be repaid. Greece, Brazil, Mexico, and many other countries have enormous amounts of dollar-denominated loans, and little of this money, if any, will ever be repaid. The world now has $200 trillion in debt. The United States is over $18 trillion in debt. Many emerging nations' high-yield debt is larger than our own junk bond market. Where will these countries find the money to service all this debt? In our own country, $500 billion of junk bonds were issued to finance our new oil and gas production and exploration. Most of this debt comes due between 2016 and 2020. It requires $60 per barrel oil just to service the debt without making any profit. So what do you think is happening with $46 oil that we have right now? And it's predicted to maybe fall to $30, $20, even $10 a barrel. The auto industry was financed by subprime and deep subprime loans on cars. Astonishingly enough, more than 80% of the auto loans in the country are subprime, with a large percentage deep subprime. Many of these purchasers will have no equity in their cars until after the 5th year of their loan. How do you think they're going to treat a car that they have no equity in? It's thought that companies like GM and Chrysler could go bankrupt again, and that Ford will go bankrupt. Where will the money come from to bail them out? Even companies themselves are doing stupid things. Many companies have been buying back their own stock. And that's a good thing when prices are low, but it's incredibly dangerous when stock prices go high. And think about it. If they're buying back their own stock, aren't they artificially pushing their own stock prices up? Because when someone's buying stock, that pushes the value of the stock up. All right. Now, keep this in mind. There's no good news and there's no bad news. There's only news, right? If you plan for news, if it's planned for news, it's good news. If it's unplanned news, if you unplanned for the news, it's bad news. So you've got the most wonderful opportunity in your life to take advantage of this. All right, ask yourself this. Have you heard any of this from your advisor? Have you heard any of this from your retirement income, your retirement account administrators at your job? Shouldn't you? Right? We're in a very precarious place, folks, and nobody knows when it's going to happen. But we've already seen a drop of 10%, more than 10% in the market. It's rebounded some, and it's going to do that. But every time, if you read what the media says, oh, everything's fine, you should expect this. You should expect losses? Why should we expect losses? This is one of the things that I found, and I've told my story. I worked in the mortgage industry for 20 years. I lived in it too. So I've lived 1,000 financial lives, and I've seen people continue to follow traditional advice. I used to too. And we kept getting hammered, kept getting pounded. We got pounded in 2000 and 2002. We got pounded again in 2007 and 2009. Are you going to get pounded again when the market crashes? And folks, it's going to crash. Since 1900, we've averaged 47% losses every 11 years. Think about that, folks. Think about how many more of those you have in your life while you're working. And then tack on another 10, 20, 30 years living in retirement. You've got another 1, 2, maybe 3 more of those in retirement. Think you could afford it then? Really, you can't afford it at any time. So, all right. So, and I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer or a Chicken Little. I'm just saying, look, folks, there's things you can do to prepare yourself for this. I call it an eventuality. It's going to eventually happen. All right. There are ways to protect yourself. You know what? When the market dropped 10%, my clients, when I saw them, I didn't have to duck in the corner and worry about them being mad at me because they know they didn't lose anything. Because all the strategies that we have them in are protecting them from that. They're also poised to be able to take advantage of any opportunities that come around to push the market up. One of the beautiful things about the strategies that we use is you don't have to worry about. Remember, I asked earlier, how many of you locked in your gains by selling and getting out of the market when it peaked? Nobody did, right? Well, what if you had a mechanism inside there that each year locked in any gains you had, any money you put in and any gains you had, and that was protected forever, right? Protected from losses, right? That's an amazing thing. So you never have to worry about going down. You might hit some time when you're flat. Zero's your hero when the market's down. But when the market's moving up, you're getting some of those gains. You might get all of those gains. Typically, it depends on how high they are. We've got different ways of you being able to grab those gains, whether it's a cap or you get a percentage of those gains. There's different ways of factoring those in. You're typically not going to get, if the market, if we go on a 20-year bull market, well, sure, that's going to beat what we have. But you think that's going to happen again? And if you do think that's going to happen again, then you're not, what we do isn't for you, is what I should say. So, well, thanks for tuning in. I keep rambling and I go too long on these, and I apologize for that. But hopefully I'm bringing enough value and enough information for you that you can utilize in your life to protect yourself. If you have any questions or would like to look into some of these strategies, as I find that as the market gets more choppy, more and more people want to talk to me, and that's great. I love to do that and love to help as many people as I can. One of the things I always find interesting is people ask me, why doesn't everybody use these strategies? And all I can say is that everybody that understands them does. So if you want to have a conversation, look, I've got a new 5-star. I call it my 5-star guarantee. Look, we'll talk for 30 minutes. The only way we'll talk for 30 minutes is if you want to continue to talk. Nothing's for sale during that conversation. So leave your checkbook or I guess your debit card at home. You don't have to worry about that at all. And that when you leave when our conversation is over, you're going to know more about your money than you did before we started talking. So it's really a no-lose situation for you. So thanks for tuning in. If you find value in this, please share the link with your friends, family, coworkers, anybody you know that would like to make sure they protect their money in the coming crisis that we know is coming. We just don't know when. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.